What's because my name is Ace, and things are not looking too good for Splitgate 2. In fact, they've just recently announced they are back to beta. They are reverting the game back to a beta state, and they provided this message to the community, which I'm going to paraphrase a little bit and inject my thoughts as we go, rather than just reading it out to you guys. But it's right up there on screen for you to read for yourself if you'd like. But essentially, they mentioned they agreed that they launched too early, and they bit off more than they can chew with Splitgate 2. So they're going back to beta, and they'll be heads down until next year. And in the meantime, Splitgate 2 will remain online and playable. They're just calling it a beta now, so it'll be in the beta state until their relaunch, which apparently is coming next year, because they said they're going to be heads down till next year. And that's a bold move with Grand Theft Auto coming out next year. But with the game still being online until that point, we are still getting the Chapter 3 content, as well as fixes and some high priority changes that they're already working on. But up until the relaunch, I'm assuming there's going to be essentially no new content after we get our Chapter 3 content, which is already in the pipeline. They also mentioned there's going to be playtests and surveys, and they're going to be doing a lot to listen to the community to guide their decisions on what they're going to be doing before the relaunch of the game. And unfortunately, there were layoffs for certain roles, and they did clarify this was mainly for people on the art side of things, because they're going to be shifting their focus from content, which is what the art team is needed for, over to reworking and relaunching the game, which artists aren't really required much for. And when it comes to this, obviously, it always sucks to see layoffs happen. I really do feel for anybody that did get laid off here, but at the same time, something I'll be referencing a lot throughout this video is I think this is a bit of a Hail Mary play, and their options are basically shut down the game entirely, and therefore everyone's laid off, or shift their focus toward a relaunch, make the team as lean as possible so they can actually make it to the relaunch, and then maybe the game and the studio at least has a shot at surviving. And one of the reasons it appears this is a bit of a desperate situation for them and sort of a Hail Mary is the fact that they also mentioned Splitgate 1 servers are going to be taken offline in about a month so they can save on server costs and retain as many of the team members as possible. So that's the news, and one big topic that has been coming up is refunds. What happens with people that bought the Battle Pass or bought skins for the game? Will they be seeing refunds? From the looks of it, probably not. They did mention they will be making good on everyone who purchased a Battle Pass. To me, that doesn't sound like refunds. I think if they were planning on doing refunds, they would just straight up tell us we will be refunding that. I think a lot of people are asking for refunds on this, largely due to the fact that their challenge system isn't tracking properly, isn't working properly, and that's the system that's tied into the Battle Pass. So obviously, if you pay for a Battle Pass and then you're running into issues where you should be making progress on the Battle Pass, but you're not because of a bug in the game, then you're not really getting what you paid for. But again, based on what we're seeing here, I doubt we're going to be seeing full refunds for the Battle Pass or for skins in the game. And like we were just talking about, I doubt they can afford to do that while also working toward a relaunch. If they had to refund all of the money they've made so far on skins and Battle Passes, from the sounds of it, that would likely result in the entire studio just shutting down and Splitgate 2 shutting down entirely. So I don't see that happening. However, especially when it comes to the Battle Pass, I think the bare minimum is anyone that did purchase the Battle Pass should be awarded everything in the Battle Pass, regardless of how much time they put in or what their progress was toward it. Because again, with the challenges being broken, that's on them. And if I paid for a path to unlock all of that content and there's a bug in the game that's preventing me from unlocking that content, then just give everyone all of that content that was in the Battle Pass that they paid for. I think that's the absolute bare minimum that they should be doing there. Then outside of Battle Passes, when it comes to the store and the items you can buy there, will that be staying online? Probably. I don't think they've confirmed or denied that at this point, but I would say the store is most likely just going to stay online alongside the game. I mean, the game's still going to be fully playable just like it is right now, but I doubt we'll be seeing any additions to the store, especially with artists being laid off. And when it comes to this whole situation of like refunds and the monetization and stuff, I do have some mixed feelings. If they were shutting the game down entirely rather than going back to beta and focusing on a relaunch of the game while keeping the game fully playable in the meantime, then I think refunds for all in-game purchases would have been expected and very reasonable to expect. Just like XDefiant, they did refunds at least for anybody that bought anything in the months leading up to them shutting down. They did full refunds automatically, and that makes sense. But this is a bit of a different case. Since they're not shutting down, the game will remain playable, and you'll still have access to all of the things you've purchased while the game is playable. That does change the equation a little bit, because at any time you can still use the items that you paid for, as long as you're still able to find matches, which at this point you are. Yeah, matchmaking takes a little while because there's not a ton of people playing, but you can still play the game just fine. And buying a skin in a video game doesn't come with the expectation that the game will have a really high player count or that the game will be absolutely thriving. You're just buying the skin to use in the game, and you're still able to use that skin in the game, so you are technically getting what you paid for. Outside of the battle pass, again, I think there's a clear issue there that they need to work out. However, this whole situation does get muddled when talking about a beta though. Since we're technically back to a beta state, I don't think microtransactions should really be part of betas. And that's something I was a little bit annoyed with when they first launched the beta before they released the game, is they actually had the store online. I don't think that should have been the case, and I don't think stores and microtransactions should be a part of betas. But this obviously isn't a typical beta situation. This is kind of unprecedented, where you go from beta to launch and then back to beta again. So the whole situation is kind of a mess here, especially since, from the sound of it, they have to keep things quite lean with their team just to make it to a relaunch and to keep the servers online. So I'm guessing there are basically two options here. Refund everything for everyone and then just shut down Splitgate entirely, possibly even shut down the whole studio, or don't offer refunds but keep the game and all purchased items playable and relaunch the game. And that seems to be the direction they're choosing, so we'll see how that all plays out. As for Splitgate 1 and the fact that they're going to be taking the servers offline in a month, even though I haven't even touched that game in ages and I have no intention to go back and play it, it does kind of suck to see they'll be taking the servers offline, because it seems that it has a small but very dedicated player base. Even after Splitgate 2 launched, there was still a dedicated player base on Splitgate 1. So for those people, obviously that sucks. It would be great if they offer the ability for players to set up their own servers so they can host the games themselves and essentially keep Splitgate 1 alive. But my understanding is that would likely require a big rework of the networking setup, since it's not really designed for that purpose from the ground up. So I don't know how likely that would be. They did mention they're exploring options for how best to serve players who want to play Splitgate 1. But they haven't decided on specifics. They're at least looking into ways to allow people to play Splitgate 1 offline. So that's something at least, but obviously not a full replacement for playing actual PvP. But I think down the road, if they do manage to get to a relaunch of Splitgate 2 and things go at least reasonably well with that, I think it would be pretty neat to essentially package Splitgate 1 into Splitgate 2 somehow. I'm picturing like a classic playlist where it's all Splitgate 1 maps, Splitgate 1 movement, as well as no Splitgate 2 classes. So basically keep the Splitgate 1 style gameplay in a classic playlist. So for those that liked Splitgate 1, they would still have the ability to experience it in a separate playlist contained within Splitgate 2. To me, that sounds like it would be a decent compromise for those that actually prefer Splitgate 1 over Splitgate 2, but that is just one thought that I had there. And overall, when it comes to this whole situation, my final thoughts on the fact that they're going back to beta and handling things the way that they are, honestly, it sucks to see things playing out this way, because I think Splitgate has a lot of potential as a fairly niche game at least. I definitely think they jumped the gun on launch, their marketing approach flopped hard, and I do think they were a little bit over-ambitious with the type of game that they're working with. I don't think Splitgate will ever have the mass appeal of like Call of Duty or Fortnite or anything, but that's okay. I just want to see them lean into the things that make Splitgate really special and unique, and really try to foster a smaller but really dedicated community around that. Now, assuming it does make it to the relaunch, I think it definitely needs more complete features. That was one big issue with the launch of Splitgate 2, is it just felt really incomplete. They need an absolute bulletproof tracking system for challenges, which is something they don't have at the moment. They definitely need to offer more player control over the experience as well. I know one of the big reasons a lot of people were pointing to as to why they left the game is they couldn't even select the game mode they wanted to play. They had to play like a mosh pit, and if you got a game mode you didn't want, the only way to not play that was to back out of the game, and that led to a lot of other issues that snowballed. So they absolutely need to get that worked out. And then just overall, like big picture, I think they really need to focus on delivering for their core fan base. Instead of trying to be right up there with Call of Duty, for instance, dial back expectations a little bit and just focus on delivering the best possible game for your core fan base, and then try to build out from there. That's how I see the situation, at least. I think at the end of the day, this whole back to beta relaunch approach is a Hail Mary play for sure. I am skeptical that it's going to be successful at bringing back a lot of people that tried the game out and then fell off. Even with a relaunch, most of them are probably not going to come back, but they do have a shot at recapturing at least some of them. But honestly, I also wouldn't be shocked if they don't even make it to the relaunch for the game. Obviously, I don't know everything that's going on internally with the studio and what kind of a runway they've got to make that happen. But at the end of the day, I really think they just had those two options, which is either shut down entirely or make this Hail Mary play and try to make it work. And I can appreciate the fact that they're trying to make this work. I am rooting for them. I want to see Splitgate thrive, even if it's just thriving within its little slice of the FPS genre. That's fine. I want to see them thrive long term, but I'm skeptical at the same time. And we'll just have to wait to see how this situation plays out. And this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What are your thoughts on this whole Splitgate 2 back to beta situation? Do you think this was the right approach for the game? Do you think it's going to work out for them? Would you see yourself potentially coming back and playing a relaunch of the game if they made a bunch of adjustments and improvements and added more features? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.